Welcome, everyone, to episode 3. My maths isn't very good today, of Pommy Ponders Live. And today I am joined by a man that not only churns out quality content, he's probably got the best graphics in the game as well. Part of the reason I've gone to more live content is because the graphics make mine look like I'm a kindergartner, but he's amassed over 16k subs. He's a legend, a great guy as well, and a Swans fan. Got Carlz Macker. How you doing, Carlz?
Yeah, g'day, Pommy. Thanks for having me on, mate. Yeah, it's always fun doing more collaborations. Wanting to do that more. So, yeah, thanks for getting me on, mate. And, yeah, plenty to like about from round 0. So, yeah, keen to get into it.
Hey, mate, round zeros. I mean, before we start on round zeros, everyone comes in. What were your thoughts on round 0? Did you like the concept? It was heavily debated, wasn't it? But did you like the concept? I kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it. Obviously, as a Swannies man, you always want to see more support from the northern clubs. And heading into it, I always felt this could work, this probably couldn't. I think for the most part, though, the fixture is the skewed fixture is going to be a bit of a disadvantage. So how will that play out in the future? So for me, they could maybe tweak it a bit where it's a 9-round system, but all the games maybe are hosted in the northern states. But yeah, it's great though. The awareness for the northern states is something we always want to see more. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good concept, but could possibly be tweaked. But yeah, it's always interesting though. The top comments of like every social media post, because that's how social media is. It's just sulking and whinging. Everyone absolutely hates it. But yeah, for me, I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And we will go into depth our thoughts of it. We did obviously have the round 0, and we start with the review. I've just dropped Carlz's link in there. If you can go and subscribe, go and comment on his video, say Pom brought us, that would be good. And Lucinda, your channel benefactor is the legend is here, Paul Hill. He bought you all some memberships last week, so you'll get the members only content as well. Stay tuned for that. But we start round 0. Your boys, this was probably, in my opinion, the hardest game to tip because the pre-season Melbourne looked pretty good, and I thought you guys were cruising. I did tip Sydney incidentally, but 22-point winners, and you laid down the early marker. What did you feel of that game, Carlz, as a Sydney guy?
Oh, absolutely loved it. I mean, with the circumstances and the outs we had, for us to, pretty much beat a full-strength Melbourne midfield in that second half, like our stoppage game really improved and our forward half efficiency was remarkable. And last year, our mental toughness was terrible. Like if that game was last year, we would have lost that for sure. So for us to be really, really good in that pretty much whole second half, fourth quarter kick, I think it was the last 5 goals in the game, was a great sight to see. And I also backed us in. I felt as well, start of the year, home field advantage, we'd come in and play some good footy. And I backed us also with our midfield. Like, yes, we don't have Mills, Parker Adams, but we have Isaac Heaney, who I'm really big on when he has a bit of isolation, when he's the guy leading it. And look, he was best on ground. His body work was sensational. And also other players that can also run in through there, like Chad Warner, Rowe Bottom. We saw a bit of McInerney and James Jordan. So for me, I think what we were able to tell is we certainly have the midfield depth to take it up to the teams, like obviously full strength Melbourne midfield. So it gives me great confidence heading to Collingwood this week for sure. But yeah, going inside 50, a bit of bombing here or there, but we were able to win it really well at ground level. And our back 6 was really composed, I felt, in the second half. First half, like the second quarter, we were conceding quite an amount of inside 50s, like really composed coming out of the back half. And that's always been, I think, a strength of our defence. We're always really composed. We're rock solid when we play well and we distribute it out there. Really nice and able also to get goals against the grain. So absolutely loved it as a Swannies man. And yeah, confident for this week for sure.
You know what? I think you nailed it there because, I mean, you talked there briefly about Mr. Heaney himself. A guy that I always find is kind of maybe underrated in Victorian circles. We know we talk about this on this show quite a lot, that interstate players, we said about Lockie Schultz, if he was a Victorian, everyone would have got excited about that trade. But because he was an interstater, he was kind of the unknown and no one really talks about him. I find Isaac Heaney, if he played for one of the Melbourne clubs, we'd be having the conversations we do about like De Goey and Dustin Martin and them exciting game changer forward midfielders. Everyone forgets about him, but it was great to see him really stand out in that game. He tore Melbourne apart at times.
Yeah, sensational game. As I said just before, the isolation with those other big bodies out. Like even last year, for example, when he played on Cripps in that against the Blues, for example, you probably remember that one, bit of an infamous loss. But yeah, it was absolutely really did adore his game. And it's like preseason after preseason, we always hear that Heaney's going to play more midfield. But this season, it looks like he is probably going to be a predominant midfielder. But there's certainly going to be games where we will need more ability to score, so he could float forward throughout games here or there. But yeah, it's just such a strong performance. Absolutely loved it.
And Lucinda brings up the guy I do want to talk about. I copped a lot of hate in the chat when I raved about Brodie Grundy, and I was watching this game really keen because I thought Brodie Grundy's worst career move was Melbourne. I feel like he's one of them players that has to be the numero uno and not be a part-timer. Seeing Brodie Grundy go out there, I made the call he's all Australian this year, and he was the first player I picked in the Supercoach video. Even captained him this week because that's how much I loved him.
Right.
It was great to see him because he looked back to his dangerous best.
Yeah, no, I certainly did. First half was a little bit how it was getting, I think, all right, well beaten sort of from Gorning. He was giving away also a few of those frees. I'm pretty sure he gave away like 4 frees in the ruck, but eventually he was able to really work it well where, when he go up in the ruck contest, he was able to sort of push out Gorn and not allow him to jump. And he was just so aggressive. And that's what we want to see. We barely have had a ruckman that's just been able to do that. The follow-up work and ability to move around the ground really well. Like Hickey was able to do that well, but then last year, just the old body really fatigued, also injury prone. So, a player like Brodie Grundy is going to be sensational for us. And just the headouts as well. Like we're able to win so much more first possession. He just really grew as the game went on, and we're able just to win clearance after clearance from pretty much every stoppage. He was an absolute joy to watch. So I think he's going to really change our midfield. It's going to be a lot to ask for him to play like that every single week. But if we can get 15, 16 sort of those top quality performances where, he really helps our midfield, all Australian could definitely be on the cards this year.
Mate, I'm with you. And I think that's the question mark with Grundy. I think the one thing that impressed me was I remember his first game for Melbourne. It looked like he'd never played with the midfield before. But this game, it looked like he'd really got kind of a synergy with the midfield straight away. It didn't take very long for your mids to learn to read him and him to read their running patterns, which is really exciting because I do see a lot of Collingwood in Sydney, the way they set up around the ball, that you look to get it out of there quick and moving, which I think suits him. Whereas Melbourne are a bit more like Carlton. We mess about with the ball before we get it out. So I think it's a match made in heaven for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a top quality ruckman to suit with, look, we've got on paper a really nice midfield, but it can be overrated. Sometimes it can be disappointing. But for me, the ruckman is probably the missing piece of the puzzle for the most part. So yeah, he's going to be awesome this year. And he was terrific on Thursday.
And the other guy was the nomination. And, we get a lot in the preseason. Someone has a good game and you hear all the reports burning down the track. But Matt Roberts was announced as the winner of the Rise and Star nom for the opening round. And there was a lot of talk about Matt Roberts and everyone was talking about him, all the Supercoach forums. He really did deliver. He looked... Sydney, you have that knack, don't you? You just seem to have a conveyor belt of people we've never heard of that suddenly become best 22. I don't know how Sydney do it. And no one talks about it enough.
Yeah, great game from Matty Roberts for sure. I think like we always like John Longmire's always loved to do it. Sort of those newer players like Callum Mills when he came into the system, he played half back. Brayden Campbell as well started defense a bit. And now Matty Roberts just to gain that sort of accountability edge to their game and their defensive edge to their game. Because Roberts is a player that's in his draft year was a half forward, sort of that inside midfielder type as well. But he could also be a future Jake Lloyd as well because his composure, his foot skills, I can see a future for him as that small defender type. So We like our versatility with our players. I think that's always a high priority when drafting. And Roberts, really neat left footer. I just felt he did the little things well on the weekend. And I think it was around 19 disposals, 8 marks or something. So yeah, he had a nice game across half back. And also considering Jake Lloyd moved mostly on the wing for that game and Roberts was from half back, that just shows again the versatility we have. So I think Roberts can continue his spot in the best 22 and hopefully he can continue it.
Always makes me sick with Sydney because you guys take all these players like post pick 30 and somehow you go back 2 years later and you're like, how did 18 clubs miss this guy? You've got an uncanny knack. Development is sensational up at Sydney.
Yeah, it's always a big part of the club. And even speaking of those plus 30 types, even James Jordan was one we wanted in our draft here. I'm pretty sure we took Justin McInerney instead, but how about that? He falls in our favour and we pick him up through the free agency. And yeah, he did the little things really well on Thursday too. So he's going to be a handy asset for us.
And then we come on to my Blue Boys. Probably, I would say I've followed Carlton for probably too long at times. So I've seen it all. I've seen all the negativity. I don't think I've seen a Carlton team destined to lose as much as this game. The bookies hated us. Everyone hated us. And somehow the Blues came out of nowhere to end the streak and live to be 1 point winners at the Gabba in probably a real showcase of what Carlton are about. Physicality, toughness, pressure. And from the sexy football of Sydney, we saw the blue-collar ruggedness of the Blues. What did you think of the Blues? Because we've done what many people have tried for what feels like 2 years now.
Yeah, it was a remarkable win. I didn't really give much of a chance to Carlton really with the outs. I had no weedering, so how they hold down that Brisbane forward half and out of the first few terms the first 2 quarters, it was brilliant from Brisbane. Their best was terrific. They brought intense heat around the footy. Going in their forward half, they were really, really good as well. And yeah, just how the tables turned up. Was there a bit of complacency kicked in for Brisbane? That's probably a question that I might ask. It was, they just went into their shells. They lost a lot of their composure as well. The pressure was terrific from the Blues as well. I think for quarters 3 and 4, it was in the elite category. And players like Lockie Fogarty brought intense heat. And the turnover game was really good. Got a lot of those points from turnover in the third term. Kerno kicking those 2 goals in a minute. And I think where it was really big too is it was sort of predictable ball movement from Carlton. And they weren't able to really get it in their forward half early on. But when they were bombing it down line the third term, they were starting to get their hands on it more. Like Harry Mackay was huge on getting those contested clunks down the line and then getting those ones inside 52. The forwards really got to work with the pressure, forcing Brisbane mistakes and getting those goals off that too. And yeah, the turnaround was remarkable. And I think that's where Carlton have also really improved those role plays as well. Like Cottrell on the end of a goal, I think he's becoming a really important asset. Just to hold out that Brisbane attack who had more inside 50s and they could have won the game in the end, but the composure did hurt them. Yeah, it was special scenes from the Blues for sure. And it was a remarkable win. Couldn't believe it.
Mate, and I agree with bevtone here. It's nice to hear an opposition fan give some love to the people that I think that's the problem when you don't watch the team. I'm sure there's players at Sydney that you think are brilliant and other pundits don't look at. But I do think you've nailed it there. I think the biggest improvement in Carlton is the cogs in the wheel now. We always used to have the diamond platinum cog, but the machine was an 18th century machine. We've now got a 21st century machine with the bright, shiny cogs. So it was a real team performance. And you mentioned Brisbane. I have to give them a shout out. Their first quarter, I thought, was as good a first quarter as I've seen. Like, I know people can say Carlton were rubbish, but they were almost playing perfect football for a whole quarter. Yeah,
and just the weapons they have in that forward 50, like Lincoln McCarthy was one of the highest rated players at the end of the game. Zorko, I think he had the 2 goals. I think ultimately, disappointingly, they just didn't get enough from Hipwood and Danaher. They were probably a bit selfish. They were just dropping their chances when going inside 50. But the first term was brilliant. And look, I think it was just a really, just odd performance in the end from Brisbane. So for sure, I think they'll definitely bounce back. As I say, again, more inside 50s. Still going to be a tough side to beat at home, but just crazy. I mean, you couldn't really predict it. And there was about 9%, I think, went with the Blues on ESPN Footy Tips. So probably most of them were Carlton supporters, but credit to the people that weren't Carlton supporters that did back in the Blues. It was, a game that I didn't expect seeing in the end with a result like that.
Since round 12, I haven't tipped Carlton last year. And the only time I did was the Melbourne prelim. So, the prelim we lost, to Brisbane. So, as a rule now, I don't ever tip Carlton because I am cursed. But no, it was a great turnaround. And I think for the Blues, it's nice that they go into the season with some positivity, because this time last year, we drew with Richmond and the question marks were, have Carlton got better? And even though we won the first couple of games, there was still that negativity. I feel like that has really answered a question a lot of people have about the club. Can they grind? And two, can they come back in the fourth is the big thing. A lot of teams have talked about Carlton have that lackluster fourth quarter. I thought we really showcased that we can win tight ones against the odds. So good momentum builder for the Blues.
Yeah, 100%, and chock full of confidence for the Tigers this week. And yeah, I must say, I think Richmond will definitely turn up the play, especially with Dusty back. But I think it'll be good to see at least football back at the MCG. So yeah, terrific stuff.
Mate, there'll be a lot of mental Bluebaggers. And you mentioned Richmond, Gold Coast. Dimmer returns to his former club. And to be fair, Richmond never got out of first gear, did they? I mean, we talk about statements. I think Gold Coast are the team we always talk about every year. Are they a top 8 side? Based on just the first game, I thought Gold Coast looked remarkable, and they out Richmond.
Yeah, certainly. The clearance game really got to work for the Suns, of course. They were a top 4 clearance side last year, and like Tuke Miller, for example, injury-riddled season last year, so now with a full preseason, and just those young players, another year into the system, entering into their primes, obviously. Anderson and Rao, the two being Matty Rao, 20 clearances, the most since I think 1998. Yeah, they just really shell-shocked that Richmond midfield, did an absolute number on them. And I think from the Tigers' point of view, well, the same issues did occur in that first half. Their kicking efficiency was really poor. They had a lot of sloppy kicking, a lot of poor turnovers, and they were struggling defensively as well. I thought Gold Coast picked apart their targets really nicely. They're the intensity was much, much better. Ben King had an absolute day out with 5 goals too. And yeah, I'm really excited to see if he's able to have a more consistent year, because I think his effort has always been questioned a little bit throughout time to time. So I think that gives him, really, really good confidence with a 5-goal performance like that.
It was interesting as well, because it was great to see Jack Lukosius as well deployed in the position he was drafted in. We know the previous coach, he liked to play him at that halfback and be more of an interceptor. That combination could be dangerous for the top teams if Lukosius, because his kicking inside 50 is an absolute treat. And that could be a real dangerous proposition. Ben King, Lukosius going, and then I've never seen Will Powell play like that as well. Usually one of the lesser names there, but even he really relished that kind of Prestia role of being the bulldog and letting the other guys go to work. It was a real solid performance by Gold Coast.
Yeah, no, Will Powell's game was sensational in the air. Even his diving mark as well in that fourth term reminded me of that Brett Kirk mark in the 2005 grand final, where the diving mark, he was awesome. And I think Collins as well was really good for the most part too. But yeah, I think areas to work on, they certainly don't want to be dropping, quarters like that. It was, quite easy for Richmond. Once they started to match the intensity a bit, they sort of fell out of favour around the footy. Their defensive half sort of struggled to, allow or to keep out those opportunities for Richmond when they went inside 50. So certainly want to work on that for sure. But yeah, that midfield's going to be dangerous, and it's going to be a key part for them if they want to win this year. And even the role players, I think, are going to be important for Gold Coast this year, especially with Hardwick. He really rates those sort of types. Like Connor Budrick, I think, can really break out this year as a distributor. And even Malcolm Rosa, so I'm really big on this year too. And also Holman and Ainsworth to apply the pressure in the forward half too. Yeah, I think in the end, what was it? Roses had about three or four. He could have had 4 goals, to be honest. So, yeah, I think they're going to have a lot more weapons that will break out this year and show to the comp that they're going to be a good side, let's hope.
He did. Bevtone loved the little Rosa. See, he did look sensational. The guy that I did want to talk about in this game for Gold Coast, before we pick on Richmond a bit, was seeing Sam Flanders. We know Dimmer came out last week and said that he's my Dusty, which I thought bold calls, because obviously I think half of the AFL league has been compared to Mr. Martin at one point in time. But he did look... That was one of them games that when I watched it, it could have been so much better. And he got in all the right places. And it looks like the ball is going through Sam Flanders in a Dustin Martin-esque way. He's definitely one to look out for because he's got some skills as old Flanders.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, a powerful player as well. He's able to really rack up the footy. I've always noticed his work ethic is really good around the ground too. And yeah, he came really, he broke on the scene that second half of last year. So I think just another one of those young talented midfielders to add into the mix of that, high quality Gold Coast midfield is going to be key for the Suns this year for sure. But yeah, Flanders, liked his game on the weekend.
And Richmond, I think the question mark for me has got to be, have they ruined their list going so hard after Hopper and Taranto? Because watching that game, excuse me, it was another game where I looked at them and I just feel like it hasn't improved their list, which is weird because we know Tim Taranto was a jet for GWS, but even Hopper feels out of sorts. He doesn't look quite right. And they've spent, a bit like West Coast with the Tim Kelly deal, a big part of their rebuilding budget on these two players.
Yeah, it's always the risk when you're paying a lot of draft picks, getting players like Hopper and Taranto. Jacob Hopper, probably his last genuinely good season was probably around 2019, and he's been injury-riddled, so they paid quite a bit to bring across Jacob Hopper and Taranto as well. Well, yeah, he can have his good and bad moments. Obviously his kicking isn't too great, but he is a great goal-kicking midfielder, and I think, he's still a professional athlete, and I think he will bounce back. But, they haven't really invested in the draft too much, the Tigers, the last few seasons or so now. So, yeah, I think they could be down the bottom potentially for a little bit. Their youth lacks a lot of that experience and exposure, and they still hold significant importance on the likes of, obviously Lynch and Dusty didn't play, and I think with Dusty back in the side, their midfield will really improve. So, yeah, no, it does definitely have its risks for sure, giving up all those draft picks. But they're still going to be a core part of their rebuild for sure, Hopper and Taranto. But yeah, definitely Taranto quite disappointing on the weekend. He had, really a lot of poor turnovers.
He did as well. And Ken and Bevtone bring up two players I did want to talk about. We'll start with, you've got to start with a positivity because I'm playing this mob in 3 days' time. So I don't want to fire them up. But Shai Bolton, I actually thought very mature performance from him. And don't get me wrong, I am in the fan club of the hate club of Shai Bolton. I'm not a big fan of him. But he did look really mature. And as a Richmond, if you're a Richmond fan, that would hold hope because he was trying to carry them, and he's now getting into that senior player category, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. I've always loved Shai Bolton. It's just his ground level work is tremendous, and he can always change a game, kick the first goal of the game as well. He's able to sneak out the back and get those opportunities. I think he's definitely got to be a player they throw in the midfield too. For example, we saw what's his name? The ruckman. I've just had an absolute mind blank. Noel Bolter. He went into the ruck a bit, and his physicality he was able to show, and he was key. But Shai Bolton is a player that can always change a game, and definitely going to be a chance to take home the best and fairest this year for sure. He's 25, 26, I'm pretty sure now. So yeah, he's going to be a really, really key part for the Tigers this year.
And the other guy I wanted to talk about, we talked about Matty Roberts, who was raved from reports of Sydney. The Richmond player, Thompson Dow, was hugely raved about. Disappointing output for him. I still give him time, though, because I do like Thompson. I liked him in his draft. But he came across a Matt Rowell who I mean, Matt Rowell was somewhere between Gary Ablett Jr. and Chris Judd, wasn't he?
Yeah, Thompson down. Pretty disappointing game for him on the weekend, but there'll be a lot to learn from it. They were playing on a pretty strong Gold Coast midfield side. There was a lot of those centre bounces where he just didn't run with his opponent, and he just had a poor ability to win the footy and just got pushed out a little bit as well in stoppages. But yeah, he has been highly rated, and he had a good pre-season from what we saw too. So yeah, probably a bit of a learning curve for him.
And then we come on to, I mean, as a Carlton fan, I do enjoy talking about it. Collingwood got beat, and they got beat, you could say, quite hard. GWS, in the end, were never really threatened in their 32-point win. And it was a bit of a return to form, I thought, for GWS. And the players that we've probably talked about a lot, but I really enjoyed Cornelio and Whitfield's game in this one. I really did enjoy it, particularly Whitfield. It feels like we've totally forgot about Lockie Whitfield in the last couple of years, but he looked sensational at times. Yeah,
GWS sensational watch. Forward half efficiency pretty much won them the game. And this is why I rate GWS so much heading into this year. Just the role plays they have mixed with their talented players, they just work so well as a group. I think they're pretty quite a tight-knit group up there. We saw Brent Daniels and Callum Brown. These are sort of players you think, who are these guys again? They kick, I think it was around, 9-8 goals between them. Sensational on the forward half. And Toby Green didn't even have the greatest game, but you have those players. Jesse Hogan's resurgence, 49 goals last year. I mean, he played mostly on Charlie Dean, but he was terrific in the air, and now his set shot routine is remarkable too. He's just now a really reliable goal kicker. And their defence, I think, some of the best in the competition too. Buckley and Taylor were terrific and composed. And Whitfield, like you mentioned, injury riddled, but he's always a classy ball user. And Lockie Yash, his drive is great as well. And just so much blend of youth and experience as well through that midfield too. And they didn't have Perryman, they didn't have Finn Callahan, who I think can really explode this year as well. Yeah, just so many assets, and just the blend of role players and elite players is their impact is fantastic. And they just really showed tremendous intensity around the footy for the whole 4 quarters, and forward half efficiency, brilliant.
Oh, mate, I agree, and it was great to see Jesse Hogan. You mentioned him. I think people forget he burst onto the scene when he came in at Melbourne, if you remember. I mean, we haven't had a forward like that, have we? Kicked 40-plus goals year one, and you've got to pick one there in Aaron Cadman at GWS, pretty much, who that's the modern-day way where we kind of feed them into the competition. But Jesse Hogan's still got a lot of football left. If they can get the best out of him, Herbertron asks, is he a smoky for the Coleman? He is the kind of footballer that can kick 50-plus goals in a year without really breaking a sweat.
Yeah, and considering the other tall forwards I have there, they're not really like Jake Riccardi can maybe kick you 30 goals, and I think Aaron Cumming could burst on the scene, but Hogan is definitely the hot spot when going inside 50, and his contested marking is great too. So if the Giants going to be a high-scoring side, I think he definitely could be probably top 5, so certainly one to watch out for.
And Callum Brown, he did set the world alight, and what I love about Callum Brown is that people forget, like this time 2 years ago, he was playing there in the back pocket, wasn't he? And now he's reinvented himself in the forward line. He's looking really strong. Also, a big thing about Callum Brown, he is a Pom. So he comes under this banner. We do love him. Great to see Callum Brown kicking snags, and Luton to Ireland to Australia. He looks like he could be quite a tasty little player for them because he moves so well.
Yeah, he made the move to the forward line halfway through last year, and he had some great performances sprinkled in last year too. So this certainly isn't anything new. And even in the prelim final, he kicked that lovely goal, the snap from the pocket too. So his athleticism is really good. He's a strong tackler too, and I think his goal kicking is really improved on as well. So he's going to be a really handy asset. And originally I thought he was Irish, but I was streaming this game and someone told me he's actually born in Luton. Then he made the move across to Ireland as well. So that's something, something you learn every day. And also another Irish Englishman, technically. I'm pretty sure Connor Odin was born in England. Then he made the move over. I'm pretty sure his dad has English parents. Don't know if that's true or not. But
He does, yeah. Laughing Magpie nails it. We did the POM 23 teams that could represent England if we used FIFA rules.
Okay, that's cool.
So there's quite a few of them. But yeah, Cam McKenzie, his dad is a POM, and he was born in South Africa. So like, there's a few of them going around. But GWS technically, if you were supporting a POM side, they have the monopoly of POMs. GWS.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
So a few of them out there. But no, you're right. He did go over to Ireland. So. Interesting, but Collingwood, a lot of people are going to say, aren't they, Premiership hangover? And then they're going to talk about Geelong last year. They obviously lost to Collingwood in round 1 last year, and that was kind of the beginning of the end, wasn't it, for them? But is anyone actually worried about Collingwood? Because I watched that game and was like, GWS, away game, first game back, I still would take Collingwood very seriously when you play them.
For sure, definitely for sure. And now they'll be heading back to the MCG with the flag unfurling. As a Swan supporter, we had to be witnesses of Geelong's one, then we get belted by 90 points. Now this year we have to witness Collingwood's one. But yeah, no, I thought last week were quite soft around the footy. I thought they started quite well, and they were, having a lot of inside 50 entries. But yeah, just for the whole part, really sloppy and unlike themselves. Like, when they're able to break free from congestion, get those hand passes out, they're gone, and then they get those goals at the back. But yeah, they just a lot of uncharacteristic turnovers. I mean, Dacos had a great game and he was racking up the football, but I think Pendlebury had like 2 touches at quarter time or half time, and DeGoey wasn't really at his impactful self as well. Lipinski's game was pretty disappointing. So yeah, I think they'll definitely be a team that will bounce back. And defensively, though, I still think they've got a bit to work on. Like if they play like that defensively, especially heading into the game against Sydney, where they've got really dangerous targets in their forward half, they've got to be a lot more tougher side in their defensive half. And yeah, they didn't really get their intercepting game going either, and that's a very good part of their game. And when you don't allow the Pies to intercept, they can be disappointing. But yeah, just thought really dropped off in that second half, especially.
You mentioned Nick Dacos. He continues, doesn't he? He just continues to do it. Leading disposal getter in 2024 already. And interesting from him, we saw a lot mid-time. The biggest annoyance, and I'm a Blues fan, so I'd never defend Nick Dacos being a Collingwood fan, but it's that contested possession nonsense, right? He had 45% contested possession. He had 16 of them this week. He really does showcase what we talked about in his draft year, how amazing he is and not being touched. That guy couldn't be touched in a crowded elevator. And that holds a little bit of hope. And you mentioned Pendlebury. I felt like there was a passing of the torch in this game. There was one of them centre bounces. You saw Pendlebury start at halfback. He started right under the ball. Is it maybe the coming of age now that we're seeing Nick Dacos? That's going to become Nick Dacos' midfield.
Certainly could be. His awareness is just terrific. That's something I've always noticed him early on in his career now. He just reads the game so well. Like when it's, in front of him, he always just gives the quick hands out and just decision-making off a step. Even his goal off a step was an awesome one too. So, yeah, he's going to be, again, sensational this year if he can keep injury-free. I think the Brownlow medal, I've backed him in because I can't really see him stagnating, can't really see him hindering this year. He's just going to be an absolute joy to watch for sure.
Well, we've got something special. We're going to give our 5 votes for the round. These will be added up at the end of the month, and we'll name an inaugural player of the month on the back of this, a little bit like FIFA. So I'll take your 1 vote. Who are you giving 1 vote to for all the games? And chat, give me your 1 vote.
Okay, 1 vote. I don't want to be biased, but I've got to have to include a Swans play here. Brodie Grundy wasn't my best on ground, but I did give him 2 votes from my little Brownlow system I'm starting this year. But he was just such a key part on turning that Swans midfield game around in the second half. And we mentioned him earlier. He did terrific body work in the ruck against Max Gawn. And yeah, he was just also applying really good heat around the footy too. So yeah, Brodie Grundy for me, 1 vote.
My 1 vote I'm giving to an honour. Well, he is a fully fledged POM. I'm giving it to Callum N. Brown. I thought his performance was fantastic, and I'm giving him the 1 vote. I was very impressed with the goals, but I thought there was a lot of good performances this week. So he sneaks in. Bit of POM bias.
Yeah, no, definitely fair enough. Loved his game. Also, Brent Daniels as well. He was just terrific. He was so clean in their forward half too. A lot to like.
We struggle to give votes to people with two first names, unfortunately, Rals. We have a moral on the show. But your 2 votes, who did you go with?
So for my 2 votes, going to be going with Tom Green. I thought he was the best on ground in that game against the Pies for sure. He's just going to be a treat to watch this year. Went to my high school, of course, if you didn't know. He's a great guy. Highly rated in this draft year, and he just keeps on proving. And he's adding more to his outside game. He's a goal kicker. Like his set shot was a lovely one. Just such a tough play to tackle. Great core strength, and just racked up the football. And best on ground for me in that GWS game.
He's an absolute beast as well. He's an absolute beast. I can't believe Tom Green, even when he came through the system, he needed drug testing at 18 because I've not seen anyone with abs and biceps like that. Like he is ripped, that kid. But my 2 votes might be a surprise, but you've mentioned him. I'm going to give it to Lockie Fogarty. I thought his second half literally pulled Carlton out of the mire. I wasn't surprised to see him in the coaches' votes. And I think it was the biggest solo performance I've seen from a guy not many people have heard of outside of Carlton circles.
Yeah, and even like in the first half, he was probably one of your few players that was still actually like giving it quite a bit. Like he was showing really good pressure and intensity, even while the chips were down for the Blues. So I thought for his 4-quarter effort, he was great. He was one that was like maybe a chance to get delisted, I'm pretty sure, throughout time. So, I think now maybe potentially he's found a spot in the side. But no Jack Martin, no Jesse Motlop could be in and out of the team. But, really, really had a great performance.
He was on the precipice a couple of years ago. I think he was fighting, and many people might want to go back and delete their comments on his contract re-signing because I actually went through it the other day, and it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty when he re-signed.
Right.
Your 3 votes, who are you giving that to?
So 3 votes, I am going to be going for Isaac Heaney. Best on ground. We talked about him earlier. Just so good in that midfield. He was able to front up against the full-strength Melbourne midfield and also kick a goal too. Him in the midfield and also on the attack, impactful. I think he had over 10 clearances. He was game high for contested possessions. Always a hard play to tackle too. Just absolutely adored his game.
I'm giving the 3 votes to Brodie Grundy. I thought it was a massive return to form. I think the pressure was on him. I think everyone had written him off after the Melbourne trade, and it was great to see him because I thought he dominated the best in the league in that final term particularly, and that's hard to do. So I've got to give it to Brodie, your boy.
Lovely stuff.
4 votes, who are you giving it to?
Harry Mackay, game winner. I absolutely loved his stuff. And saying earlier, like it was really important in taking those contested marks inside 50 whilst Carlton were repeating a lot of those long bombs. So I guess if we want to look at from a glass half empty sort of approach, if Carlton will continue to do those long bombing, it could maybe hurt them against a side that's able to repel those entries. But it was awesome in the air. Mackay was taking those important clunks down the line too, and obviously kicked the match winner. So going with him from a 4.
4 votes. I'm giving it to Matt Rowell. I think sensational. He's a one-man clearance machine, and we have the best clearance player in Cripps. To see Rowell do that was devastating, and I'm really looking forward to that battle. I can't wait to see Cripps go against Rowell. I think the master versus the apprentice. I'm looking forward to it, but sensational performance, and hard to believe 2 years ago this guy had to sit out the year with an ACL. He looks fit, firing, and looks primed for a big year.
Yeah, I'm hoping he can string that consistency together. This year, last year he had a few disappointing performances, but could this be the year where he strings together, good performances for the most part, and could push for the All-Australian squad? Who knows?
Mate, wouldn't surprise me. He was an odds-on winner, wasn't he, for the Rising Star before he got hurt? Like, it was Nick Dacos levels, wasn't it, at one point?
Yeah, it certainly was.
5 votes. Who we giving it?
Oh, Matt Rowell just pretty much took the words out of my mouth there. Yeah, I mean, I think when someone breaks a record with 20 clearances, you've got to give them the most votes, or give them the player of the round. Just an absolute beast, and just love his ability to win the footy. Like, when the ball's in dispute, he'll just keep on pushing and pushing, and he'll risk himself to give away holding the ball free. And also, as the chat's saying, love a grass-fed football. I don't know what the grass is up there in Queensland, but yeah, he's just such a great player to watch, and his ability to win the footy, and I just love his fight and aggression. So Matty Rowell for the player of the round.
Might be the Blues bias, but I think a man that was literally in the press for 3 weeks saying that he's cooked, to kick the game winner in a position that he's missed about 4 shots in preseason from, that Matt Lloyd has offered his services, and running 14 kilometres as a key forward in a game. Rucking, the sensation that is Harry Mackay. I can't go past it, because I think I would agree with you, Riley. When you break world records, you should be 5 votes. But adding the pressure, I think if Harry had missed that, potentially you could see the undoing of his career this week, because I reckon the press would have slaughtered him. And I do fear of what could have happened, that there could be another alternate universe where he missed it. I am scared to think what they would have wrote about him. So great to see it, and great to shut the media up, because that was a big ball play. Big ball play.
Yeah, for sure. A feel-good moment in the round, most definitely. Him going back and slotting home that set shot will definitely do much for his confidence. And I think that's where Carlton could be a damaging side this year too. If they could get more from Mackay and also Curnow influence in the game, we'll definitely watch out. It was definitely fair enough. For Harry Mackay to be a player around.
I'd like to thank my mate Daz as well, who managed to screenshot me holding about 8 cuddly toys, saying, "Please kick this, Harry." He's already started the banter in our boys group chat, and saying Pom sleeps with the light on. Look at these toys. So it's going to be interesting. But that was the round that was. The question we're talking about here is AFL. They've trying to build the game, and Riley touched on it at the start. We're going to have this horrible bye round, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't like the fact the first 3 rounds, one team has played more all the time. I really don't like bye rounds at the best of times. But is the AFL missing a trick that we're not having one of these rounds in Tasmania and getting them used to the idea of having football?
Well, I think when you say it that way, it sounds like a good idea, but I think, they're going to consider building a stadium soon. I think they've still got to get that confirmed. So I think infrastructure-wise, it might not be a possibility as well with the crowd and everything. But the concept's not a bad idea. They've got to raise awareness to those sort of areas like they have with Gather Round with Adelaide last year. So for sure, maybe in the next few years or so, if they want to continue this opening round concept, not only the northern states they raise, but also Tasmania to get a bit more football down there. But at the same time, they've still got, the Hawthorn playing there around a few times a year as well. So they do get a bit of awareness down there. But yeah, I don't mind the concept. Probably once they knock up the new stadium, they could maybe open the first game of the season down in Tassie for sure.
It definitely would be something, isn't it? Because, I mean, would I be fair to say that I always thought, I've been to Adelaide. They're mental about the football. Like, I would say Adelaide's probably the closest to Victoria for football love.
Yep.
I'm always surprised we don't do more in Sydney. Because I would say that the West Coast has got the 2 big Perth clubs. It's massive. Queensland, I don't think you're ever going to break NRL. So I don't even think the AFL should focus on that. I always think that New South Wales as well is an untapped market.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest. I thought we were actually going to be a genuine chance, Sydney. Obviously representing as a Swans fan to host Gather Round. But I mean, when you looked at it last year, I thought it was sensational having it in Adelaide. A lot of people got around it, and it's sort of like the middle point of the country where people from WA can come, people from Victoria can come as well, because if it's in Sydney, from people from like Adelaide and WA, it would be a bit of a struggle to get there. Because I did remember people were saying that, so that was probably a reason why it wasn't. But what is it? The next 3 or 4 years it's in Adelaide, so maybe after that they could move it up to Sydney, because I think a whole round in Sydney alone would definitely do wonders for raising the game up in the northern states in Sydney.
Where do we feel about round 0? Do we think this is a great concept if this was like round 4? Because I know that a lot of clubs, and it isn't just Carlton and Richmond, I've seen a lot of clubs not like it who aren't participating in it, X, Y, Z. Do you think this is maybe something that we keep the traditional round 1 and then add this maybe round 2 or round 3? Have maybe 2, like the gather rounds. We have 2 of them, like maybe give 1 to Sydney and then 1 maybe round 10, round 11.
Well, obviously the predominant purpose of the opening round is to open the season, have the hype built up to this. So I think how you said it, yeah, maybe add in another gather round later in the season. Have another one in Sydney for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably keep it as just the gather round, just the one gather round for now. And if we are to do another opening round, open the season in like a Sydney or something, just have a 9-game round, as I said earlier, because yeah, just the fixture is the big one for me. It's got to be a 9-game opening round, not just a 4-game, because it's just, yeah, it skews the fixture too much and creates advantages and disadvantages for teams.
Unfortunately, round 0 is its name. I'm still not a fan. I feel like if I'd spent all this time coming up with the concept, I would have had a cool name. You know why the AFL have called it round 0, though? Because it's the traditionalists. If you'd called this round 1, everyone would have hated it, even more than they hate it.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure.
One more thing I wanted to add about this. We have something in our Super League, right, called Millennium Madness, because we play at the Millennium Stadium in Wales. And it's over the weekend, and every team plays at Millennium Stadium in Wales. Every team. All the sides play. They play, I think it's 3 games a day, and they play on the Friday to open it. And it's usually the replay of the grand final, and then all the sides play. It's been a huge success. Does wonders. Is that something that, 1, is plausible, and 2, is that something that maybe the AFL should look at, trying to make a niche thing where everyone is in the same place, same stadium, same venue, same areas, and try and get that going? A bit like Gather Round, but try and get it a bit more exciting.
Well, yeah, I think Gather Round portrayed it as best as possible, really, because, you know, AFL is a very unique sport where, you know, it goes for quite some time, and, you know, obviously maintenance to the ground and everything. So it'd be hard to have 9 games just at the one stadium. It might be a bit of an unrealistic thing. And also, like, it's Australia, you know, Wales, everyone can travel to that destination, whilst with Australia, can't really be too much of a common theme with travel and everything. So yeah, I don't know. I probably would disagree with that, because I think Gather Round does that well enough for the most part. You know, at least playing different venues and raising awareness to sort of the smaller grounds like Adelaide Hills and Norwood too. It was great to see some footy on those grounds last year. So that's probably my thoughts on that.
Mate, I agree. And I agree with Ken here. Did anyone else think Gather Round was so weird that both of the South Australian sides didn't play each other to eliminate any home advantage? I found that the most bizarre thing, because I felt like it would have been perfect if everyone had an away game.
Yeah, it could definitely be another way to tinker around, especially with round 0, you know, just have sort of the neutral ground. I mean, how would it work, though, to be fair? Like, if you'd have Brisbane, would they play in Sydney? And then if you'd have Sydney, would they play in Brisbane? So yeah, it could be another concept to add into for sure.
Right, it's going to be interesting. And we talked about round 0. Obviously, round 0 has brought up more injuries. We've lost Kitty Coleman. We've heartbreakingly lost Sam Doherty. I think Sam Doherty and Kitty Coleman took us to 7 ACOs already this year, which is an all-time high in the AFL. Is this something? Why do we think this is? Is this too much demand on the players? The preseason being too long? The turnaround being too short? Where do we think this is coming from? Because the injuries are starting to mount up, and already, if you play fantasy, we play Dynasty, me and my mates, it is crazy the amount of injuries we're already having to negate.
Yeah, it's also just quite an unfortunate coincidence as well, just all these players going down. Usually his long-term injuries always sometimes tend to happen early in the year. I don't know why that is the case. And I think from the quality of games, like even on Thursday too, it felt like we were still seeing pre-season quality games, like especially Collingwood and especially the Thursday night game with the conditions. So it felt like with the season now starting a bit earlier, for more of the veteran players too, it's sort of, it is maybe a bit harder to adjust. But yeah, at the same time, it was an absolute shame to see like Kitty Coleman and Doherty highlighting them two going down the ACLs. And Doherty, what's it now, his third ACL, very likable guy, and he's just going down again. And Kitty Coleman clashing, I think he had a clash of kneecaps with another player, and he's gone down as well. So yeah, you hate to see it with all these injuries mounting up early on.
It's a sad part of the game, isn't it? I mean, it takes away from the competition. I mean, I saw some horrible comments on Kitty Coleman. I saw some horrible comments on Sam Doherty. These are the kind of things that, I mean, maybe I'm old, but I want to see the best players. I never wish injuries on players because I want the best 22 out, even if it's against my team. And Kitty Coleman is, I think, one of the more heartbreaking ones in the terms of I felt like he was destined for a phenomenal year, and it's happening to the best players, isn't it? It's not happening to the also-rans.
Yeah, definitely. And Kitty Coleman for sure is going to get the keys to the back half of Brisbane this year, definitely as well. Daniel Rich out, and just now him with the potential, he still untapped potential still has. He could have really owned it this year. So definitely hate to see that. But it's someone like a Darcy Wilmot who I thought was great in the losing side. He gave effort all night with his running carry. He had that lovely passage of play late in the game where he sprinted. It was the far side of the ground. He sprinted almost like 100 metres to get the ball forward. And even I think Connor McKenna will still come back on the side. So yeah, hate to see it definitely for a talent like Kadeem Coleman.
It's sad as well, especially with the concussions that are mounting up. And obviously we had some media talk, which we come on to, and we do send our love and hope all the ACLs, particularly Sam Doherty, Kitty Coleman. We want to see you back out there. Can't wait to see them come back. But a lot of media noise this week. And I've noticed, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the media this year have been a lot more American media of trying to drive narratives that are maybe not there and trying to create a bit of angst in the supporters. Do we feel like this is a good thing for the game? Or do we feel like maybe the media are going too far this year? Because they seem to have vilified a lot of players, not just Harry, but they seem to be itching to stick the knife into a player every week.
Well, that's just how the media and especially social media works. There's always going to be hype around things, and there's always going to be pressure building up for certain topics, and especially with the Victorian, sort of side of things like Harry Mackay, a lot more players are going to be shined into the spotlight. And yeah, media noise is definitely going to always be something that's probably a little bit too much. We've got to, obviously respect the privacy of players. It just is what it is. And yeah, I sort of agree on that. I feel like there's been a lot of that, shining on the spotlight, like Harry Mackay as well, and all that stuff. So yeah, for me, there's probably a bit too much noise, but it's inevitable, really. Let's be honest.
It feels like it started around June last year with Harley Reid, because I have never seen a draftee be in the papers for negative reasons when he hasn't done anything. I don't know if you remember the article, but they went through his Instagram likes and then started linking that with he didn't want to go to WA. And then I was listening to the radio and they found one of his mates was commenting who happened to follow him, saying, don't go to WA, stay in Vic. It seems to have now become almost feels like it's a Big Brother fake to try and create the furore. Because if you remember, they went so hard on Harley Reid, didn't want to play in WA. And he looks quite content in WA. It seemed to be fake noise. You see the Harry thing. Seems to be a weird thing this year that they're really hot on creating the article.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Harley Reid star, I did remember that last year. I had to see that. And I think Horn Francis went through a similar thing. Pretty sure like unfollowed North, or he liked a Port Adelaide post or something. Yeah, I just feel like that can get, there is definitely a scummy side of that sort of journalism where people dig in and stalk social media profiles and everything. But yeah, no, you definitely had to see stuff like that. But I think we can't go past the ultimate story of Buddy Franklin dropping his sandwich and Buddy Franklin taking the bins out. Daily Mail, you just can't beat it.
We've had some weird ones, and you talk about that. The one that I always find weird with the media is like today, the Mason Cox running through. The media released an apology from him, but they didn't include the apology in the clip or the tweet. So they made it assume that Mason Cox kind of just downplayed it and did it for content. But if you actually read his statement, he specifically apologizes to the people affected. What did we think first of Mason Cox? Do we enjoy the players? Because I feel like the media are pushing the players to have personality, and when they do, they pan them. And are the players also to blame here? Because Mason Cox, I feel like, divides it. And the media didn't really talk about it, but they've exposed kind of not him apologizing when he did. What do we feel about that incident? And do we feel like it's kind of maybe some of the players play the media as well?
Yeah, it's probably an incident that's gone too far now. And when I was watching the clip, I saw there was also like one of the Collingwood assistants with the specky bag. So I'm like, well, hold up, isn't there? Maybe that's what Collingwood were training, is doing the warm ups as well. So yeah, it was definitely it's just something that went really too far, to be honest. And I think when you were talking about like you've got to have personalities and everything, I think I definitely agree with that. There's got to be heroes, there's got to be villains, there's got to be players that are quite cocky. I mean, Cox definitely comes across on the field as quite an overconfident and a cocky player, and sometimes he can't back it up with a good game here or there. But I think off the field he is a good soul. We've seen that through many acts he's done. But yeah, I mean, part of footy and part of sport, I think you always got to have the different personality types, and it's inevitable. The media is really going to criticise that at the end of the day, like we did see.
I think it's an interesting one with Mason, because I can see Laughing Magpie talking about Jack Ginnivan as well. He's another guy that I feel like he's vilified because he's got a personality. Do you know what I mean? Because I come from the EPL world where I'm used to the players doing dances after goals, showmanship and stuff. It's what makes us love them and what makes other teams hate them. It does feel like, though, that if I was a player now, I always think of it as a dad, I would be telling my kids, just go and play football, put your kit in the car, drive home, don't talk to anyone. Because the minute you do, you're going to be lambasted for just being yourself. And I feel like we're in a dangerous area where I hate the fact that players are so reluctant to show personality. I want them to make mistakes, have successes, show a little bit. I feel like we're driving a culture now that's pushing them away.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. It's probably just AFL, in general. I think just with Australia, it's always been sort of a lot of placid personalities, not really anyone expressing, like Jack Ginnivan, with all the stuff he's done and shushing to the crowd and everything. Like, it's never really been too much of a thing. So yeah, I think we're going to see that more and more, especially with the social media generation. There's going to be a lot more overconfident players coming through the leagues for sure. So I think this is the start of something that will definitely happen a lot more in the future.
I did want to give a big shout out as well before we finish up to a guy that has probably been vilified by the media a lot. And I mean, this guy, the media have brought up things his family has done, his upbringing. I did want to shout out GWS and their handling of Toby Green, because I think since he's become a leader, we've seen maturity before our very eyes, and he still plays tough and he's still rugged, and I still wouldn't want to be his neighbour, but you are seeing him now become a mature man. And that holds me hope, because I do feel like the media do forget, especially with Ginny you were talking about. He did some stupid stuff off field. He did some petulant things on field. I remember being 18, 19, 20. I was a dickhead, and I didn't really grow up till I was 33, and I'm 38 now. So the media know that as well. I feel like we've got to let them be kids, because they are going to make mistakes. They're in the public limelight. I mean, when I was their age, I could have a beer and get into a fist fight and no one knew who I was. These guys can't. And I think Toby Green is a real good story for young players to look at, that you can turn it around, because he looks a remarkable leader at GWS.
Certainly does. And yeah, like you said, mistakes are made and maturity is built. And I think especially for those northern clubs like Sydney, GWS, the players are closer than ever because, they're from interstate and everything. So, inside the four walls of the footy club, relationships can really build and maturity can build as well. And I think Toby Green's always, well, internally we don't know, of course, but they always must really rate him. And yeah, I think his leadership is definitely fantastic. And he's aging like a fine wine with his ability on the field as well, for sure.
I think it is sad as well when you talked about Jesse Hogan earlier. We've seen him mention that he moved interstate to get away from the noise and how it helped his mental health when he went to Fremantle and when he left and went to Fremantle. You hear Danaher talk about it, why Brisbane was his choice. It does feel like you may get a situation where players may be pursuing interstate if we don't kind of sort that avenue out.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. 100% agree.
Well, Riles, I will put your link in the chat up again. Everyone, make sure you go and see Riles. Make sure you subscribe to his content. It is wonderful content. And honestly, his graphic work, he is the only man I have ever seen in my life do a tier maker and then spend the time making his own graphics for the tier maker. I applauded that video, to be honest.
I appreciate it, mate. Yeah, no, I like doing the Adobe Illustrator stuff and all that jazz. It's nice to chill and obviously improve. Like you always improve at things as well, and that's something I like to hold close to my heart. It's always something I like to craft and do on the channel.
Mate, it's a great content. Make sure you go down there. He does every club. He covers every game. He's very impartial as well. He does really well because I can tell you, it's hard to do. It's hard to do and be nice about clubs you don't like. So credit to you. Thank you for joining me, Riles. Can't wait to have you back on and do more content. It's my favourite time of the year when you text me start of the year to say, come and do your head versus heart. I always enjoy that video and hope to do more videos with you soon, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it, Pom. Great to chat about the footy, mate. And yeah, absolutely love your stuff. And cheers to getting me on.
Cheers, mate. Look after yourselves, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow. We've rescheduled team selection panel because Carlton play on a Thursday. So it'll be Tuesday, 7 o'clock, same people. We have got an extra special guest, but Bucky joins us. All the other hosts are there, apart from Lek Dog, who has pulled a sickie as usual. Lots to come, though. Look after yourselves. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much.